What is going on, everyone? This is AJ from the Adventure Co. podcast, the Adventure Pod. Let's go, Ryan. You excited to get another episode out there?
Yeah, I'm excited. It's been a while, and soon we're gonna have some new equipment, hopefully, to go ahead and spice things up or make the quality a little more crisp. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny. It's been a while since we've done one of these, and it seems like we've gone through. I mean, we really went through a whole RTN season, and we've had a lot of things kind of happen in terms of like what we saw, what heroes were good, what heroes weren't good, what heroes were maybe a little too good, what maybe equipment was maybe a little too good. I'm excited to kind of dive right into it and see exactly kind of like what we think of the meta, what you think of the meta, what kind of how your RTN season went, how my RTN season went, and yeah. So we have a couple things we're gonna get through. We're gonna go through the RTN season. We're gonna go through Stubby Hammers being banned. We're gonna go through just maybe how good is Fi. Maybe he's a little too good. Um, but maybe the Stubby Hammers ban did something about that. Kind of talk about how Dromide doesn't really feel as good as I thought. Um, maybe like what our picks would be if Nationals was tomorrow. And then maybe a little finish up a little skirmish. Skirmish is going on, so uh, we will talk about that maybe just a little bit and just see kind of like how we feel about the Blitz and the sealed meta and kind of our thoughts on skirmish overall in that event. But before we before we get to all that, like how you been, Ryan? What's going on, man?
Oh, I've been good. The Road to Nats season, even though I didn't make top four, top eight at any points, feels like it treated me pretty well. It was nice to be in a meta without Starvo and Chain for the first time in been a long time. I don't think
Yeah,
we've had a professional meta without them, actually, at least not without Chain.
I think that first week of RTN without Starvo or Chain felt like so open and freeing for so long. We were just so excited to be like, oh my God. It's like we were like escaped from prison or something and like we got to see like daylight for a minute. We were like, oh, the world is open.
Absolutely.
The world is open.
Absolutely. It was very fresh, and it felt like everyone was giving everyone else a little bit of a try. There was definitely still, as there is now, a prevalence in Fi, because I think people still like playing aggro, even if it doesn't necessarily lend itself or hadn't been found itself to be as strong as the previous ones that had rotated out.
Right.
But yeah, it was definitely we definitely saw like plenty of people trying Icelander, Dromai as the new heroes, and then people trying to bring back Lexi, people bringing back Oldhim, um, and people bringing back Prism, of course. I don't think Prism ever went away necessarily, but she definitely didn't like being around when more aggro Rune
Right.
Blades were
The
around.
faster the format, Prism actually kind of she has a hard time slowing down the format. What she really preys on is decks that are already kind of slow. She usually can out tempo them, kind of get some, value that sticks on the board that they have to deal with. Whereas a class that can like when ninjas are good, uh, when rune blades are really fast and good, she has a little bit harder time struggling. Especially any class that can swing a weapon for one resource, and that weapon's not as integral to their game plan. I think Prism has a bit of a hard time trying
Yeah, it's
to get through
mostly
that.
mostly classes that I think just get one main attack per turn most of the time. Um, and then classes that can go wide and then finish on the weapon swing that barely costs them anything or is just to get rid of one extra aura. If they can still threaten some of your hand and get an aura out per turn, Prism has a hard time actually keeping up that same board state that she enjoys against Guardian, for example.
Yeah, like
So
Guardian also has like a hard, especially any class that only throws out typically like one big attack. Prism can kind of prey on that too. We saw that even
hmm
against Starvo. Um, she was
hmm
able to kind of take advantage of the fact that the most Starvo was mostly doing was two attacks, and really what they would do is, slow their game down even more. Whereas I think the aggro classes just did too well, uh, too well at keeping her, you know, onboard presence away as much as possible. Um, but Prism aside, the rest of the meta, for a while, that first week of the meta was kind of wild. We saw all kinds of things winning. We saw Leviathan coming out. We saw a lot of people, still no Azalea Living Legends points. I think there's a lot of other content creators that are, they even have a bounty
I was
on
I
Azalea.
was gonna
So
yeah, I was gonna say I think Azalea is the only one who hasn't been given a fair shake since uh the new meta arrived. I don't think that's gonna change now that I think, you know what? I'll give it this. I think part of the problem is Prism. I think Azalea has no game plan at all against Prism, or at least not an efficient one. And until Prism quote unquote leaves, she's just not even going to have a chance to stand up to even any of the other classes consistently whenever she runs into one. But at the same time, she's still going to have her usual problems against them too. So I don't expect that much of a change, but maybe just like a little bit, like at the most,
yeah,
if
I
any.
mean, maybe. I don't know. I think Azalea just has a hard time. I think a lot of times you'll be playing against Azalea, and you'll be noticing that the game feels very unfair. You'll be
Hmm.
seeing like, oh, Red in the Ledger is dominated, and no matter what, I'm only gonna get one action next turn. Oh, they've taxed my next turn. Not as bad as other heroes, but they've taxed my next turn with like a hamstring shot. They've, for a lot of these Go Y classes, like they have Remorseless to make them, deal an extra point of damage every time you activate a card, and an action card, and we noticed that like Fi has like 7 attacks on the chain. That's basically like a free E strike, on top of her damage. But unfortunately, there's always that turn. It feels like where she's just her inconsistency catches up to her, and it's like the big turn to let your opponent come back into the game. They weren't able to get that red in the ledger back. They weren't able to play that red in the ledger maybe with dominate, or it was just like yeah, like a vanilla 5 or something like that, and your opponent's able to like kind of take over the game from there. And I think that's kind of her issue.
Yeah. Hang on a second. My camera decided to quit on me. What is this? Um, let's. I'll just continue speaking for a second while I fix this real quick.
No
Turn it
worries.
on. Maybe. No. Okay. I gotta love drug camp sometimes. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying, I think it's also the fact that she just kind of always comes off as like a worse Lexi in terms of like her potential, I
Yeah,
guess you could say.
Lexi definitely feels a little bit more. She doesn't have red in the ledger, right? But she has a lot of things like she can create multiple frostbites in a turn. She can uh, have on-hit effects that make you discard cards, which may be just as bad as.
Yeah, she has on-hit effects too. She requires the extra like requirement of fusion, but in all honesty, is that really when you put it this way, she has Voltaire, which gives her extra chances of go again and multiple reloads. One of the things that Azalea always struggled with is being able to have multiple arsenals. Because like
New Horizon.
even with New Horizons, she doesn't really get to use it unless she uses her once
No.
per turn ability to randomly get something off the top.
Right,
And
and
even
new
then, Death Dealer doesn't load while something is in the arsenal at all.
correct. It's like they made it's like they knew how debilitating she could be if she got to use these new toys, and unfortunately it just doesn't work out for her. I think there's better disruptive picks, of course. Yeah, speaking of disruptive picks, something I'm kind of leaning towards as we're talking about the meta, I'm actually really like I really want to try Icelander. I really want to kind of build that deck, and I want to slow these aggro decks down. I kind of want to make them like not have a good time at the table. Make them
So
think.
yeah, so as someone who has been testing Icelander, she does have very strong disruption, but some of it needs setting up first against certain classes. Because let's say you play the Chilling Ice Vein by itself, a 5 player is going to be like, all right, well, I'm going to lose a card either way because I definitely didn't bring enough Arcane Barrier.
Right.
So maybe they'll pitch a blue if they have as much energy as they need to Arcane Barrier 1 and then just pay the 2 resources. Or they'll just straight up discard the card if it's, like, I guess you could say the weakest card in their hand. And then they'll still come back with way more damage than you were going to do with the Aether Ice Vein for just like 4 or 5.
That's fair.
So
Yeah, I guess you need to get to a point where you're taxing their turn so much that their turn is just terrible.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And the
like
only ways to do that consistently is to have like the Insidious Chills, which get 3 procs each once you set one up, and then like Amulet of Ice, which lets you choose when you want to use it.
how do you feel about
Um,
red Arctic Incarceration in Classic Instructed?
Red Arctic Incarceration is in some cases better than Aether Ice Vein, because let's say your opponent has an all red zero hand.
Hmm.
If you use Aether Ice Vein, for example, they'll just discard their weakest red and then just go off with 3 cards at least.
Right.
But when you use Arctic Incarceration, they have to pay to get rid of those, and if they don't have the blue specifically, their turn might just be dead immediately. So, and they have no way to respond with that. You can't respond to just getting 3 frostbites with that.
Right.
So technically, Arctic Incarceration is better against aggro classes more times than Aether Ice Vein is. Aether Ice Vein not as great against or I guess you could say is a little better against the stall classes, because if you're hitting with the 5/1, they probably don't have Arcane Barrier 5. And then when they give up a card, it hampers their turn a lot harder, or at least their ability to hurt you back, than a go wide class. So that's my opinion on those two.
Okay.
Usually, I tried to focus on having the 6 attacks like Command and Conquer and Erase Face that at least had some disruption against Fi, because I felt like just pitching and swinging for a fat 6 was better than just attempting to have them
Mm.
choose what card they want to discard. Because blocking with 2 cards to stop a disruptive ability versus just discarding one of your least powerful cards in your hand, there's a world of difference when it comes to how you're disrupting your opponent's turn there.
Makes sense. Makes sense. All right, I do want to dive into our actual first topic here, which is kind of the RTN season. I know we
Hmm.
talked a little bit about the first week, but kind of like how our RTNs went. So I actually only played in one, I think. Yeah, I think I only played in one, and I was able to snag a qualification there. It was
Yeah, the
draft.
collectives.
Huh?
The collectives
Yeah,
drafts,
it was
yeah.
the collective. Went played draft. Um, I actually played all 3 heroes in that draft, or in that day in that event. So, um, first draft table, I played as I definitely drafted Dromai. I just saw way too many good Dromai cards. Too much to pass up on. And Dromai, funny enough, at the time was the only hero. Uh, was the only hero that I actually had any experience on going into, because this is like the first week, maybe this, I think it was the first week of RTN season, so pretty early after Uprising release. So, um, yeah, drafted Dromai, went 3-0 in my pod, which felt really good. Going 3-0 means you only have to win uh, one to be guaranteed top 8, I believe, at least with the players that we had, the amount of players. But I ended up going 2-1 in the next draft. I drafted Fi. I don't think there was anything special about that Fi deck. It was just I saw too many good red cards or just four go again just seems like really good. And even against the one Icelander I played, it wasn't even really close. They missed a blue early on. I was able to stack like, I don't know, like 14 damage. They could only block a certain amount. I think they were like at 4 after that turn, and I was nowhere near dead. Um,
Yeah.
I did end up going 2-1. I think the only round I dropped in that pod was against another Fi. So Fi is good in draft. I think most people know that. Sometimes it's just really good to even force Fi, it feels like, but maybe we'll get into that after I kind of finish the recap. And then
Y-
go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say to that point, forcing Fi always feels better than forcing the other 2 classes,
Yeah,
because
I would agree.
neither of the other two has a weapon. So getting into a late
That's
game
also true.
scenario,
If you ever
if you
get
were
to
to
that
block
point.
out,
So,
if you were to ever actually get to that point, which is really rare, but let's say you do, like let's say you drafted like all the Oasis Respites to block out Icelander, or um, just always had at least the little hits to get rid of any dragons Dromai got or the Aether Ashwings, then at the end of the day, you're in terms of the fatiguing, you're the only deck that can really fatigue the other
yeah,
decks.
I mean, you're not really gonna fatigue anyone on Fi, I think. Your cards don't really block that efficiently. and I think they did that on
Yeah.
purpose, being
Hmm.
the only one with a weapon. I think the only time
Yeah.
I've ever
But
seen a Fi go to fatigue is actually against another Fi. So,
that counts kind of. But it is still that consistency though that you always have damage on board waiting for what's it
yeah, I
called?
mean it's super
Just
inefficient
just
damage on
waiting
its
there.
own. It's 2 for 3. But anyway, going into the final pod, um,
Hmm.
I was actually the only Icelander at the table, and I was kind of like thinking like this is like unreal. Like this deck feels too good. Looking back at it now, I definitely made some draft choices that were not great. I definitely would have gone back and picked a little bit more red. I was kind of under the assumption like, oh, blue card, this must be good. So, I just drafted mainly blue cards, and my deck had like no real damage. So I did end up managing taking the first game to get into top four and snagging my invite. Unfortunately, it came from a weird ruling that kind of went my way. Won't get into that too much, but um, it did go my way. So I got up to top four, and then immediately lost to a Fi. I did actually take that Fi down to like two or something like that, but it didn't matter. Ended up losing, but we snagged the invite. And unfortunately for me, oh, and I got my Dromai cold foil, which is the only hero I really wanted. I mean, other than winning and getting Icelander, but um,
Hmm.
and that was kind of my one RTN experience. Wasn't really able to make it to any others. I didn't really have I'll be honest, the other CC events, I didn't really have the drive as much to compete in those. They were a little bit farther away, so just kind
Distance,
of
yeah.
just kind of left it at the one. But you have a much more. I don't want to bring it up to like salt the wound or anything, but you have a much more storied RTN season than I did. You went to a lot more events. How about you? Go over a
I
couple of
did,
those.
I did. The first one was still the collective one, which you did far better. It probably didn't help that in the first round I realized I'd somehow sleeved up 6 Phoenix Flames, which is
All
definitely
right.
illegal. So I got
We were learning the set, you know.
oh no, it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with the fact that what's it called? I knew you could only use 3. We played it in enough pre-releases to know
I was
that.
giving you
The
an
problem
out,
was
man. I was giving you an out.
nah, man. I could take the hit on this one. The problem came in that I forgot that 3 of this previous Phoenix Flames that I used at a different event for the sleeves I was using were already sleeved up, and I left them that way
Ah,
intentionally. But then I still sleeved up the ones that I had set to the side initially with my draft pool. So then I'm like, all right, just sleeve everything, and then I've got the deck right. Ah. So yeah, that net me the results of the ruling and everything for that net me a round 1 loss, and I didn't do great in the second draft. I cannot remember what I did. Um, I think I might have just drafted a jank Dromai deck is what happened.
hmm.
So I wasn't able to make it to top 8, and when it came to the next one, which was at Sunshine Games, I I did well
What
during the first
format was
pod.
that?
That was also draft.
Okay.
So I did well in the first draft. I went 2-1, only losing my last round to a Fi because I
Okay.
got past all the dragons, which was kind of crazy. So I had like 6 dragons in my Dromai deck, which is
Okay.
pretty good. 2 of them were Chromai, which is pretty
Oh,
nice.
Chroma is choice.
Yeah, pretty wild there that I got past 2 of them in a row. But it was the last pack, so I think everyone that was next to me was just Fi. So yeah, they didn't have any use for it, I guess.
Hmm.
Uh, But then in my second draft, while I was at the top tables, getting ready to hopefully make it into top 8, I don't know what I did to draft the awful Icelander list I did, but I had too many yellow attacks, which I thought were good enough to supplant like you choose reds for damage, yellow is at least
Yeah.
some more damage than blue.
Yellows are
But I ended
flex,
up
right? Yellows like kind of flex you in. Like you can, if you have to play it, you can. If you have to pitch it, you can. It's like they're in that
exactly.
weird flex spot. Yeah.
But then I ended up not having like enough for like any blue or ice cards as a result. So I just tanked and couldn't pull out like I think I pulled out one win against one of the other Islanders who had no arcane barrier, and that was about it.
Mm.
So that's what ended my second road to Nats. And then in my last one, which was Classic Constructed, up in Jacksonville, uh that one went Yeah, that one still didn't go too well, I guess, when you look at the ending score. But
Yeah,
I went 2-4, but two of the rounds I objectively got greedy for
I
and
gotta
kind of
back you up
threw. I
real
was
quick. I gotta back you up.
yeah,
What
yeah.
hero were you playing? Because I think that's
That's
important.
that's exactly what I was about to say. Is I was playing Levia, so
My
taking a
man.
gamble on a last turn Blood Debt and not finding the banish card I needed, even though I had it in hand. The first time was a little more of a calculated risk. I just didn't have a lot of sixes compared to non-sixes in my graveyard, so I tried to, I think it was Blood Rush, to draw into a card and discard another six to get it in there, and then ended up drawing nothing to banish cards and died to Blood Debt at the end. And then in one of the other ones, I made a very poor choice where I definitely had a banish in hand that I could have utilized, I think with
Mhm.
Art of War, and I just chose to try and use the Unworldly Bellow, I think, to banish and then use Graveling Growl on top, and then it just ended up not working out. So yeah, that's what ended my streak there. I could have easily gone 4-2 that day. I just those two decisions,
Yeah.
and I tested it afterwards. You know how you kind of like test out
Yeah,
your
yeah.
last
Like,
hand
would
against
this
your
work?
opponent.
Yeah.
I definitely would have had a 4-2 record, and I maybe squeezed in as one of the 4-2s into top 8. It's actually not a guarantee there either,
Yeah.
with the whole placement method and everything, but I felt good playing the list at the very least. I had a nasty turn against a Bravo player, for example, and this is Bravo, of course, with pummels, its spinal crushes, and with everything else they play. But I had a nasty turn where I rolled on the Scabskins to start off, obviously, as you do.
As you do.
Um,
Roll them scabbies,
uh,
let's go.
Endless Mod for 10, or no, sorry. Endless Mod for 9, Graveling Growl after a Howl from Beyond for 10, and then a Blasphemous for 6. So that was 25 damage on a single turn off a just 4 card hand. So that was pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. It's just unfortunate you have to roll scabbies for that. That could have easily gone the other way and just ended your
I
turn.
mean, that's why I keep saying Brute's always going to be nerfed to just damage. I don't think Brutes will ever get like any crazy on-hit effects or
No.
disruption like Bravos have, even though they're like damage for damage. Because Brutes have the two cheats where their attacks usually have low energy cost compared to Bravo
Yep.
for at least similar damage outputs, and then they can also just cheat
They always have
action
the chance for
points.
having action points,
It's
in their
it's a
pocket.
beautiful
Hmm.
it's a beautiful thing for Brute because it matches their theme, but like it'll eternally nerf them in every other way to balance them so they don't turn out like broken.
Right.
Because unless
Right.
they do something crazy like banning the Scabskins leathers so they
No
can
way.
make Brute more interesting, but I
They'll
don't think
never
they're
do
gonna do
that.
that. I think they'll make Brute interesting in the way that they get to their combos maybe, but that's just about it. That's just where it stands. But I had fun with Levia, probably more fun than I did with the drafts. Just and this is just a personal thing that I kind of have to get over. It feels bad when you draft a list and you know it's bad, and then you just have to play through the rest of
Yeah.
the tournament or at least the 3 rounds knowing it's bad. That kind of hurts. When
Sometimes
you
you can
lose
kind
to
of
your
salvage it though. I mean, you have to kind of keep your
yeah,
head up. You did the best
hmm
you could at that draft pod, and maybe the person next to you is thinking the same thing, right? They're thinking this deck kind of sucks. Like,
nah, man, it was Tom. He won, so.
well.
But the point is that it just takes a little longer to learn how to go through drafting because it takes a little more time than just like dishing out CC rounds with the same
It's
deck you
harder to
practice.
practice too.
But
Getting a draft pod.
I definitely learned some things, so that'll help in future draft events.
Absolutely. So, how do you feel about RTN, Road to Nationals as a whole, as an event? At least this one in particular, some of the events were draft, some of the events were classic constructed. Maybe do you
I
think that maybe all of them should have been one or the other? Do you think having a mix is good? Tell me your thoughts a little bit,
I
just on
think
the
having a mix
events.
is I think having a mix is good because let's look at it realistically. Road to Nats, or I'm sorry, Nationals has
Oh,
both in its format for the weekend. So
yeah.
you're gonna have you start off the first day with draft, and then you end the second day with draft, or is it the other way around? Okay,
I think you start both days with 3 rounds of draft.
okay, so you start to both days. So yeah, you do draft, and that's your first thing that gets you your like first seed into getting kind of like a better score. Like you definitely don't want to lose during those first 3 rounds if you're going towards the like top 8 at the end of
Yeah.
it.
I think you
So
definitely
you
want
really
to
need to
you want to get out
you
of the
really
draft
want to
rounds at
draft
like
well.
you want to get out of the draft rounds at like I think at like 2-1. Kind of like what,
2-1,
yeah.
losing the last round at the worst.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so rough the way Gem handles tiebreakers more than anything.
Yeah.
Some people like it, some people don't. I mean, I'm on the, I don't like that if I am 4-2 and someone else is 4-2, just because I lost my first round, which is purely random who you go up to, and they lost their third round or something like that. I don't like that like their tiebreakers are immediately higher than mine.
Yeah.
I'm not really a fan of that. I'm more a fan of strength of schedule being the first tiebreaker. So like let's say I lose round one, but that person I lose to goes on to go undefeated, right? They are the first seed going into the next day. Is that really fair to me that like I lost to the first seeded opponent, but because I lost to them in round one, that I kind of get screwed? Because that happens, you know. That actually happened to me at Vegas. The first, not this most recent Vegas calling, but I actually lost round one in the first Vegas calling, and I had to rattle off, 6 games in a row for wins because I was kind of worried that, losing that round one, I'm like kind of screwed in the rest of this calling. So I'm not really the biggest fan of that. As far as I'm concerned, I think RTN season was a smash hit. I think all the events in our area were ran very well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, all the judges did a great job. As far as the mix between CC and draft, I'm a big fan of that. I think when nationals comes around, kind of what you were saying, I think you want the best flesh and blood player, not the best CC player, not the best draft player. You want the best flesh and blood player. And I think those are core components, both sides of it. And I think having RTNs that are, one or the other, I think give you a good kind of chance. If you're a good draft player, you can get it on a draft. If you're a good CC player, you can get it in CC. And then on top of that, it comes to prove it when you actually get to nationals. And I think it gives the players that are good at both, like one or the other, a chance to kind of prove themselves in the other when they get to nationals. So yeah,
I definitely.
I think RTN was a pretty good hit. If I had one criticism, I think it would be and I don't want to like it's a nitpick a little bit is pricing from LSS's side. I think Icelander should have just been part of the top eight, and I think there should have been something worth maybe a little bit more, maybe a rainbow foil extended Crown of Providence or something like that, similar to the
Some,
tunic.
something a little shinier, yeah.
Yeah, something similar to the tunic, where we had the rainbow foil extended tunic. I think that like a rainbow foil extended Crown of Providence, probably where I would have ended up in
Yeah,
the pricing. So
because I mean, when you look at Icelander specifically, she has a double-sided Marvel with an alternate art already. So in terms of like
she has like 4 max
the
rarity cards now.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like in terms of like the prettier card, like obviously technically value-wise because of supply versus demand, the RTN Icelander holds a little more value. But when it looks like if you had to choose, like if you're an Icelander player like me, and you're choosing which one you would want to have like actually represents your hero or which one you'd want to bring out to show off, definitely the Marvel one.
Yeah, the Marvel
Like,
one with the full art on the back. I'd
yeah, I'm
agree. I think
still looking for one of those. So,
Steve
I'll
Argyle did that, I think. So
yeah, he did.
yeah, so that art is just
Actually,
beautiful.
I actually finally got those metal prints in from New Jersey, which includes what the Icelander with the signed art on or with his signature on it. So
That's
finally got
awesome.
that in.
Yeah, I
hmm
mean, I really like her adult art too, the new one, and I think that looks
It
really
is
good in cold foil.
very, it is very powerful looking. I do like it too.
And it does have like that coveted first place, a little bit of a price tag to it. But I
Yeah.
don't think if you were trying to chase, it's just so. Like I don't want to like again I don't want to spend too much time on it because I'm really not like that hurt about it or anything. I
No,
kind
yeah,
of
I
wish
get
that
you.
first place prize was just a little bit more coveted in terms of like what it was. And again, the fact that Icelander already has now multiple cold foil printings. She has, I mean, our young hero from Everfest has uh, the Armory promo.
hmm
From Everfest. She has the Marvel that you were talking about, and now We have the cold foil adult from winning us an RTN. So personally,
Yeah,
I would have liked to just see like something kind of. I know you'll never get to
a
Tunic
little
again,
fresh.
but like something
Yeah,
on trying to be on that level.
just
Um,
something fresh. Yeah. And
yeah,
you
and
know what's
that's
funny is that for skirmish season, they don't even have Icelander at all, like the
no.
new young
You would think
Icelander.
the new one. What about the animals in the background that look all scared? I kind of want those in cold foil.
Yeah, so now it's like now they take our way completely when we'd like at least a cold foil version of the alternate art, but you know.
I wonder how we're gonna end up with. I wonder if they ever do make that young hero cold foil that version. Maybe in
I
the
mean, we're getting.
armories.
I
I
mean,
don't know.
no, because I mean, at the very least, we're getting Kano cold foil in young for just the entry to the uh
Yeah,
nationals. So I mean,
yeah.
that could be one way.
I think that's kind of like a farewell to Arcane since we never had that. I bet you each region gets a different one, and that NA was just kind of spoiled early thanks to the. I mean, that's
Star
totally
City Games.
speculation. I know we're kind of going
Yeah,
off, but
that
that's totally speculation. I don't know. The cold foil Kano is neat, I guess.
yeah, that's kind of interesting. I mean, you gotta wonder which one you'd want the most. I guess hardcore, like not even just think about your hardcore favorite character. Like Kano was the face of Blitz for a while, so
He
his
was,
young form would probably be high value. But
but
after they nerfed him without Stir the Aether Winds and Snapback, I
why
he
a
could
young
okay. So,
Arcane Rising hero for a CC main event? That's kind of where I don't know.
yeah, that part is a little weird, honestly, and it's a new promo too because it's got the green mark on it. So it's not like
Hmm.
something that was like
We
made a
found this in the
while ago
vault.
and yeah, found this in the vault, and then now they're bringing it back out finally. Can I be honest though? I do like it better than another mats. Just, I mean, this is just me. I do have too many mats from all these
Right. I
events that I
think
went to
maybe
last year. So like
maybe
all
with like
the pulse mats were really nice, but I don't need more mats because I play usually mats related to whatever character I'm playing. So I only need so many of those.
that's
So
fair. But I mean, having event exclusive mats is pretty cool too. And for people that can't go, they usually try to. Those mats kind of usually fetch a price tag, but
I
it's not a
mean,
big deal.
it's no, it's not a big deal. But let's put it this way: when it comes to like the last cold foil hero we got was Yorick, which was a more of just like
Well, that's for
a
Pro
promo.
Tour. That's a little
Yeah, that
different.
was for Pro Tour. Yeah, it's obvious. I mean, this is still Nats, dude. So I mean, a cold foil,
I don't
sure, of some
know. They
sort.
hold like if you look at the like tier lists for like events, Nats is like lower than like Worlds and Pro Tour, which I always thought was interesting. I almost would put like as far as like to me, like what I hold. I mean, I'm not a pro. I like to be. I like to think of myself as a pro. But
I mean,
I hold like the words like national champion higher than like Pro Tour winner. I don't know. That's just me.
yeah, you'd have to know what the context difference is. But yeah, when it comes to the nationals, but speaking of like even getting like entry to nationals this time, they did make it a little harder to get into this time compared to last year.
Yeah, the
So
US Nats
the
entry last year was kind of a joke. Um,
yeah, there was a lot. There was like 500 entrants compared to how many this time?
well, there's 500 this time too. I think there was over 500. I want to say it was closer to 7 last year
But there
after
was
they.
only like 100 for 90-day XP, so everyone else had to win an invite.
Yep.
Correct? Okay,
I think they
so
did
that
the same thing. I don't know. I don't really remember. I don't really remember, but it does feel a
I
little
think
bit
that
more exclusive this time around.
yeah, I think the 90-day XP and like the list was definitely shorter than it was before, at least last year's.
Yep.
I think they let 200 in plus all the wins last year or something.
Yeah, I don't remember, but it just felt like there was way more people in it last year. I hope there's a lot of
Yeah.
people in the calling. I hope this Nationals gets really huge. I'm excited to go to Charlotte. I think Charlotte's a really nice city, so North Carolina is
Oh yeah.
awesome. So
I got my biases about New York for for the Pro Tour we went to, but you know we were technically not in New York directly,
we were in New
so
Jersey, and
oh
I'm just really surprised. And this is I want to get to like a couple more topics like Stubby Hammers and Fi and everything. Um, but real quick, while we're on this topic, I'm just really surprised they didn't go with Orlando for any events this year. I heard nothing but good things from players when they went to the Orlando Convention Center, and it's just really surprising to me.
I mean it should come as no surprise that that area is very catered to by the by Orlando itself. It's a tourist tourist spot. Um, Very high-end tourist spot with all the theme parks and everything. So it's built to handle big events, and it's built to like draw in crowds. So
Right.
to summarize, it's made like the other convention that I thought was really nice in terms of like the area and the convention center was Fort Worth. Fort Worth, I keep saying it, and I know we had our jokes about what time all this stuff closed around it.
Yeah.
Very very early if it wasn't for something like the Cheesecake Factory, for example. Uh but the area was nice. Like besides the construction, but I mean every place
Okay,
has
I
got their
guess we can
construction.
we can agree to disagree there. I guess what you're saying is it was
It
clean.
was
It was
Yeah, it
clean.
was
It
clean.
seemed like
The
kind of modern, but it was like I did not have a good time at DFW personally. Not from like a it wasn't like bad. I wasn't like, oh, I hate being here. It was more like nothing. I was bored. Like nothing was happening.
even when we went to that one place that had like the
Yeah,
biscuit
even
place. Oh,
that
that
was
was a good
like
place.
a yeah, I don't
Oh,
know. I don't
you
know. I'm
didn't you
excited to
didn't
go to Charlotte though. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
you didn't like your cinnamon toast crunch milk drink?
But, okay. All right. Now we'll move on to some more flesh and blood topics. Stubby hammers. So after this RTN season, kind of took shape, and we saw Fi go from like a fun aggro deck, kind of like, oh, it's just a bunch of head jobs, to uh, Stubby hammers kind of being worth 6, 7, sometimes 8 damage on a chain. That's like a free E strike that just came out of nowhere, didn't cost them a card or anything. Uh, that's a lot of damage coming out of that card. Uh, More than the legendary that normally, Shuko usually provides less damage than that over time. And that's a legendary.
Over the course of a game, yeah.
Yeah,
And even then, it's manageable because it's spread out over turns when a player can refill their hand between. You
right.
got to look at when it comes to things like this. And then the same could be said for some other cards, but when it comes to Stubby Hammers, when you buff that many cards that you can string together, like all the Phoenix Flames that they could search for and all that other stuff, the damage potential versus what a player can normally even block out with a maximum hand size. Um, like it's just overwhelming them on a single
Yeah.
turn. It all takes sometimes in this game, when it comes to the aggro classes or the go wide classes, is one single turn to really put your opponent on such a back foot that you can tank anything they do and constantly put out more pressure than they do for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen so many Fi, especially the Fi mirror, but so many Fi games, end in less than 5 minutes or something like that on turn 2 or 3. I think the issue for me with Stubby Hammers wasn't necessarily its potential, like not its like overall potential, but more so what it could do without setup. It seemed like the Stubby Hammers turn just like happened. You're just like, oh, it's time, and there was no telegraphing from your opponent. It's just they drew the 4 cards they needed to like make this go off, and it just felt like maybe it was just a little too strong. Um, and LSS agrees, and I kind of want to talk more about how do you feel, less about the fact that it was banned and more about like how it was banned. It kind of got its own banned and restricted announcement, away from the normal scheduled one. And how do you feel about that? Do you think it was warranted? Do you think LSS should have waited? Or do you like that um, it was given to us kind of, as soon as possible? They know it was going to happen. Just let us know um, as soon as you can. Like you're going to ban it, just ban it now. Kind of rip the band-aid off.
I'm gonna say sooner the better. It kind of would have been nice because I'm sure it was a decisive factor in a lot of people's games in Road to Nats. If it might have been taken off the list sooner, because they already pre-banned it in Blitz before 5 even came out,
Right. So they
or
kind
even
of
got
already knew,
announced. Probably
maybe.
they knew what
Yeah.
it could do, so they had an idea. And it's another like Monarch card. Again, one of these sets where they had trouble getting as much testing out as they wanted to because the whole
We've
COVID, like
definitely heard
that
about
was
that.
when COVID was
Yeah.
at its worst.
We've heard how
Um,
hard it was in New Zealand for them to get testers, in the same room.
yeah, because they were very strict about their quarantine rules and everything. So yeah, the stubby hammers. Putting that aside, just stubby hammers as a general, like when they chose to ban it, I think it's better that they do it sooner. They already had their eyes on it clearly, and the results of our Road to Nats definitely showed that it played a huge role in giving some people like a very more than intended
I
advantage.
definitely would agree. And we even streamed a 1K that came out. You can find it on this channel. You can look at. There was a 1K where it was pre. So the ban announcement was of course out, but of course the ban didn't go into effect until August 1st. And
Yep,
so stubbies was still legal for the 1K, and you definitely see it come into play there. There's some stubby turns that are just crazy, and it's it was a it was a crazy card, and so many of these cards that seem broken, um, they seem broken, or I'm sorry, they don't seem broken. They seem very innocuous, right? They seem like, oh, the attacks already have to be so low. How many attacks do you really expect on a chain, kind of thing, when you can only have a 4 card hand and
exactly.
a card in arsenal. So what's that, 5 at most if they're all 0? But then we see the way Fi works, and you get a free extra attack from the Phoenix Flame. You have another card that searches Phoenix Flame, another card that picks up Phoenix Flame from your graveyard, and now next thing you know, you're adding 1, 2, or 3 more attacks for free basically on the chain, and that's another 3 damage from Stubbies. Uh,
And you add Inflame to that too as the first attack on the chain, which adds +1 so long as the base attack is lower than the
yeah,
amount of chain
you
links.
mean Spreading
That's
Flames?
literally Spreading Flames,
Yeah,
yes.
Spreading Flames the Majestic. Yeah, exactly. And you combine that with Stubby Hammers, and you're just like, okay, well, this is kind of silly.
God
I
forbid you
think,
also get an Art of War too.
yeah, oh, Art of War with Stubbies and Spreading Flame, you could just have these crazy turns that were just wild. And
Your
then,
your Phoenix Flames after your first attack, which would be the Spreading Flames, would each hit for 4,
yeah,
which is and it's searchable with multiple attacks on the chain. Like that's
it was crazy, and
I
I think it was warranted. I think LSS needs to really think about these lingering effects. I think that is kind of where they're like falling down this pit. If you look at a couple of the cards that have been banned, almost all of them, actually, they've been lingering effects. So if you look at Plunder Run, it was a lingering effect. It wasn't if the next card hits. It was the next card that does hit, you draw a card if played from Arsenal. It wasn't Ball Lightning, doesn't
Ball
say
Lightning, good
the
lord.
next card gets +1 or deals 1 more damage or whatever. It says the rest of the chain deals 1 more damage. Um, and so I think Stubbies was just the next card on that list of lingering effects that, if maybe Spreading Flames is the balanced version of that, because it has a stipulation, it has to be less than the number of chain links you control. Uh,
I would say that it also only worries about ninja and draconic attacks, but
yeah.
Fayu looks like he was the only one who was even abusing stubbies at this point since Chain left. I don't even think Chain used it that much before. But point being is that because he was the only one abusing it, I don't even think the that little stipulation of draconic and ninja matters too much.
Right.
But
Well, I
yeah, at
mean,
least made it so that the attack had to have at least more than the amount of draconic chain links. So you had to keep sticking with your draconic like deck building
well,
to
yeah.
get that
I mean,
bonus.
what I was gonna say is also that you only have 3 spreading flames, and you have to find them, right? And you have to have the cards that go, enough with them to make this long chain. And how many cards is it really gonna buff once it gets there?
Hmm.
Whereas Stubby Hammers was a piece of equipment, and I think that is also a huge difference in that you don't have to spend the card to play it. It's just there ready for you whenever you need it, whenever you have a good enough hand to use it. So yeah, I'm definitely on board with the ban. I don't love banning cards, but I do think that it was warranted, and I do think that LSS giving us the ban as early as possible was probably for the best.
Let's put it this way: it gives people who are going to Nats plenty of times to play Fi still and test with other builds.
N-
Fi still, even not all the Vi lists that won even had stubby hammers. There are plenty of lists that did run Shuko or did run.
Yeah, I don't think Fi's, going
No, I'm pretty sure
anywhere.
it was just Shoko.
And
So
I think that kind of goes into our next point. is Fi broken? Even when Stubby Hammer is gone, is Fi like maybe just the next zero cost Briar? Just this is get this out of here. Like we just they think they gave us the tools to beat it with three Frost heroes, but there's still not enough. Fi still figures out a way and is actually killing them in like with regularity, and it just
Um,
doesn't feel. It feels like Fi. It just feels like to me like maybe Fi is just a little pushed. Um,
so I'll disagree to a small extent. I think Fi is still a very fair aggro deck than the ones that we've had to see recent changes to the game overall or recent ban lists overall in the past. Just for one simple reason, he doesn't really get to um cheat like extra hand size like Chain did, and he didn't get to cheat like I want to say overstated buffs to a really big attack like Starvo did. Um,
I
and
mean,
then even then, I still think compared to Fi, and don't get me wrong, it's still strong. He gets to search if he gets the right cards like multiple Inflames or Flame Call Awakenings on the same turn. He can find more Phoenix Flames to extend his combo, and if you have the buff, kind of nasty.
I want to talk
But I,
about a point you made just now,
yeah,
just one of them,
hmm
where he doesn't have extra hand size, and I think that's kind of disingenuous. When we talk about cards like Art of War and Spreading Flames and the way Phoenix Flames work, I don't know, it does kind of get like extra cards for free that don't feel like it's as fair in terms of like, like it just
well,
seems
so
like good.
when it comes to Art of War, Art of War has always seemed fair to me because like until these characters who could break the level of chain links that you would expect even possible for certain characters to do, Art of War has never been broken. You still have to pay a resource, which I know can be Tunic resource in most cases. But you still have to pay a resource first and play the card. And if you want to do the banish draw too, you still have to give up another card. So you're kind of netting the same amount of cards in the end, filtering one of them to draw back into one to replace the Art of War at least. But the +1 really does it in when you get to extend past the expected amount of like hand size or strung combos that one would normally expect. Now, Fi does this, like I said, with the Flame Call Awakenings and Inflames, because then he gets those Phoenix Flames, which
Right.
also get buffed.
And they go super wide,
Um,
and then God forbid you ever let a Phoenix form with full text hit, and then you just probably lose the game one spot.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Phoenix form, it's still hard to get, don't get me wrong, thankfully. It's not the easiest to get. But yeah, they at least balanced Flame Call Awakening and Flame to having the stipulation that A, you need to have played a red card, which I know isn't hard, but like you still have to play a red card first before that card plays. And then those only come in red. So they only have one set. They're almost like Majestics on their own. They only have a set of 3 of each that you can have in a deck.
I like that we're differing on this because here's where I'm at with Fi, where when I start to feel like a deck is maybe a little pushed, a little too far,
Yeah.
it feels like his worst turns are still better than a lot of other decks' good turns. I
Oh,
think
because
there's,
he's just. Yeah, because he's just throwing out attacks. All of his things are attack.
well,
That's like a
yeah, what I'm
ninja
saying is
thing.
like you could draw a hand and you can look at like, oh, this hand is not good, and then still end up doing 12 to 14 damage. So
Yeah, that
that,
part's a little annoying.
yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at is like, how bad does a hand have to be for you to actually have a bad hand? Whereas like a bad hand in say Dromai or even Icelander or let's even go back to classes like Dorinthia, right?
Yeah.
There were times where I'd draw a hand in Dorinthia and be like, this hand is unplayable. Like I can swing my sword and pass. Like and I just
Yeah,
I don't know if I want to go back to that exactly, but I think maybe Fi is just too far on the other side of that pendulum. That's kind of where I'm at.
he might be. He might be. And what I'll say is the biggest fix they can do with him. What would be the fix?
I think for me,
Honestly,
go ahead.
I think it would be spreading flames. Maybe is the one that gives the overstated extra damage. That's a little
Possibly.
unforeseen or at least unmanageable from the opponent. Because like, I want classes to be able to do. Like I want go wide classes or I want aggressive classes to be able to deal out damage or deal out lots of little individual hits, like even death by a
No,
thousand
that's cool.
cuts if it
Yeah,
needs
no,
to
I
be.
totally agree with that. That flavor is great. I think
Yeah.
what for me what makes it feel. Here's what I'll say. Here's what I wish they would do.
Hmm.
And maybe Phoenix Farm is a little bit of this, but I feel like in Katsu, the original ninja, there were and in Dorinthia, the two kind of like aggro classes of Welcome to Wraith, and no, I'm kind of starting to sound like a boomer here, but like whatever, boomer fab player. But I feel like we need to get back to this point where there needs to be he can have like a seven chain attack, right? That's 7 link attack chain. That's fine. I think in those links there needs to be attacks that like you get rewarded in some way for blocking it correctly, for knowing that that was the card to block. Whereas right now there's no reason almost other than like a full text, again, a full text Phoenix form. There's no reason other than not dying to so much damage to block anything. I mean, you can turn off mask, but a lot of them are running like pouncing links anyway, so what are you going to block everything that turn? Most of the time that's
Just to
even
do that salt the
impossible.
wound combo. Oh my god,
Yeah.
those things are
And most
disgusting.
of the time that's even impossible. Like they're just the like literal math doesn't work that way to where you can block and then you block everything. Let's say it does, you block everything and you don't have a hand, you just don't do anything on your turn. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to like cry like, oh, broken, unfair. But sometimes it feels that way. Sometimes it feels like a deck like Fi pushes out. It feels like we're polarizing the meta to where you either play Fi on one side or like Ice Heroes on the other side, and like everything in
Hyper
the middle
defensive,
kind of
yeah.
like gets pushed out.
That's kind of why, speaking of Katsu, that's kind of why I like the idea, and I'm going to start testing him a bit in addition to the other two classes that I want. Like, I would consider myself maining right now. I feel like he's like the perfect balance of a deck that could switch with just a little bit of sideboarding because of how his ability works between aggro and defensive. Because, like, if you hit, you can discard the defense reaction that was a useless nothing in your hand and then
Right.
suddenly hit with something.
Yeah.
So I think Katsu's like somehow just this weird perfect blend of like balance between the two sides. Um where he can still you back in the day you've had insane Katsu
Oh yeah.
turns. You've
I
told us
actually
before.
I
And
had like
then
36 damage turns on Katsu, like during
and then
Crucible of War format, and not playing Art of War. I didn't even know that card was good back then.
Festus knew. Festus knew from day
Festus didn't
one.
know. But I had a turn where I went through the entire leg tap line and then the entire win line. That was fun.
Oh my god. Oh, so good.
uh,
But then Alex was known for being the defensive Katsu player
right.
and making that work. So it was like
And knowing
I don't
how to
know, he
block,
just
which I think is kind of a lost skill right now. But that's fine,
exactly.
Again, boomer fab player,
Uh
been here since the beginning.
No, I agree. I completely agree. I think there needs to be a balance between decks either needing to pay heavy costs to be able to hit over what would be the normal, like feasible, you could say, hand that another player could just draw into, because they don't get to choose what they draw into with their hand at the end of their turn. So it's, I guess you could say it's kind of partially on deck building, but then partially on luck at that point, whether they can even like handle your turn if you just go off, like you
Right.
said, without even any like block points or choke points to hit.
Okay. All
Um,
right. So,
one other thing I want to add
okay.
to that is that, for example, when it comes to like certain things that I've been thinking about for Phi or some other past classes, they require something to be set up on the board. Like so you hear about these crazy Kano combos, for example, but usually they have to have like potions on the board
Yeah.
already set up
Usually.
and some other stuff. So
Sometimes
at
not,
least that's a
but
yeah. Sometimes not. You're not wrong. But sometimes that's on the part of the other player not respecting it or not bringing enough AB to these like constructed events before, and then being like, "Oh, I'm not going to hit any Kanos." So
yeah.
that aside, some combos that hit way over hand size are cool if they at least require some setup from previous hands to go ahead and compensate for that level of damage or something. Because, like,
Right.
cash in to draw extra cards after you do something to make coppers, energy potions, which are just slap it down and your turn's
Yeah.
basically over. Those are cool. And like we've talked about this in Flesh and Blood, like how it's almost like an RPG, like warriors fighting up against each other rather than like
Yeah.
monster summoning like every other TCG.
And
I
sometimes
think
there's
setup,
something like a Katsu, like a ninja who can hit you like 1,000 times. I think I think for
yeah,
me, uh, on that point that you just made, I think for me, what I've kind of been talking about is I want to see players get punished in a way to where if I'm playing like a Fi, if you don't block this card, and not the super obvious again Phoenix form, but like something along the way, like if you don't
Hmm.
block this card, you get punished, and that's how I go off, something like that. Whereas you get like rewarded with game knowledge and becoming a better player. Um,
Absolutely.
Whereas right now it just feels like, and again maybe I'm just crying about losing to aggro deck so much, but it just feels like we've been. I think the proof is in kind of like what's been happening to like every top eight since Monarch. It's just been aggro decks, aggro decks all the way down.
Aggro
Again,
decks or some sort of defensive deck that's
right?
like got the power to like, because I think we looked at it earlier, the recent battle hardened. The top eight was all Phis, one Brave Briar player, and
Yeah,
the top two, which ended up winning, were the Guardians, Oldhim
yeah.
and
Who have
Bravo.
disruption for the aggro deck specifically?
Exactly.
Oldhim has like Eternal Winter.
Endless Winter, but it's
Endless
most.
Winter.
It's, I think it's Oakenold is what really gets them, because it's
Oakenold,
like
Endless Winter,
just get rid of your
his
cards.
his Ice React, whereas
Oh,
Bravo
even his
his
Earth React.
yeah, I mean,
Earth
and
React just defends two Phoenix Flames right there without extra cards.
unless they're
That
running Shuko,
means a lot.
unless they're running
Oh
Shuko.
yes, unless they decide to run Shuko instead of Stubbies, but
But then
actually that could have been post
Bravo,
banless.
he has the obvious ones. Crippling Crush, that's the one that gets talked about the most, but also Spinal Crush, and even Cranial
Final
Crush in a
Crush,
way, that they can't draw
CNC
cards if
pummels.
they are running. Oh yeah, just 9 pummels or 6 pummels at least. So yeah,
Yeah.
interesting meta we're in. I'm not saying that it's completely solved just yet, but I would like to see, more opposition to Fi, and I would like to keep seeing more diverse metas. Not necessarily the aggro decks or the Guardians. I made a joke before. I was like, it feels like this format just feels like play aggro, Guardian, take three. Um,
Yeah.
and it's funny, even people will bring up Prism. What about Prism? She's 2 points from LL. And I was like, if you take away Prism's like 600 points, and I know that's not arbitrary, but like 600 of her points are from very good players angle shooting a tournament, and not angle shooting like cheating or anything. I mean like they saw a line where it's like, oh, Chain plays this way, and I can build Prism specifically to beat Chain in that way and take that all the way to a win, and they did. And so I don't think that means Prism to me, and I know I'm a little biased. I'm a Prism player, but to me, at least before she got the blue auras, that doesn't mean that Prism is super crazy strong in the sense that like it means that she can be teched towards a certain meta to be very good into that meta. But then she loses to like almost everything else in that meta if you do that. So I don't know. That's just me rambling. We're gonna go on to uh if we were going to Pro Tour Lille or Nationals tomorrow, what would our CC picks be? You go first, Ryan. CC pick and why?
So my CC pick right now would be Levia still. I know I said I made two major errors in my last road to Nats, but that was my first time picking her back up since I think, oh man, it has been a while since I picked her up, because like trying to go up in a meta against Chain and Starvo, where Starvo you get one I guess you could say forgiveness hit with the Husk against one of his like dominated crippling crushes off of his ability.
Right.
But once you get past that, he doesn't need to really sacrifice much in terms of damage like Blood Debt does on Levia, and then have that one turn where you trip up and then just lose all your life like that. Levia has insane damage numbers. Like I would say even more so, sometimes on the fly than Fi. The only tough part is early game before you even get a graveyard going, because any of the cards you draw, like 90% of them, you can't even play turn one. So you just have to claw it out, and
It's fair.
hopefully they can't just slap something down first turn.
Okay.
Which kind of goes back to what I was saying about setup in these kind of like dueling games for high power turns. But she does have that high power stat. The only thing that I think is a little, at least compared to other heroes which have high power stats or high go wide stats, she has a really harsh uh drawback mechanic that
Yeah.
once it builds up over the game, like one trip up, and you're just like,
You just
I
die.
had the game until
Yeah.
I died from 20 health or something, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've said it to so many people now. I was like, I've been playing against you so many times where I'm like, this feels unfair. You've done so much damage so fast. I'm blocking all of it. And then next thing I know, I look up and you're just like, and I'm dead. And I'm like, but like, why are you dead? Like,
You're like
like,
at 2 health, and it's like, well, I guess I'm in reckless swing range, and it's like, don't worry about it, friend. You got it.
like, wait, are you
I got nothing.
conceding? You're like, no, I literally died of blood debt. So,
Which I guess, I mean, when you don't have to compare it to Chain or Starvo, maybe, and now Fi, it really is unfair damage in certain turns. So it's like, and like I just told you about the Bravo at one of my road to Nats, he just stood there like, or he stared at the board and wondered what he could have done to save himself at that
yeah.
point.
So I guess if
Um,
I was going to one of these events and it happened to be tomorrow and I wanted to win, I think I'm on the fence. So I would first want to say Phi is like the first thing that comes to my mind. If I'm truly trying to win, I think Phi will win the tournament. I
he's fun
really do.
too.
I do think Phi win the tournament. I think he's very consistent compared to other classes or heroes, and I think the heroes that disrupt him may be bullied by if here's another thing too. Will Prism be there? I don't know when the next ban and restricted is, and I know there's a couple battle hardens along the way, so uh, if Prism's there, I think enough Prisms will show up because it's probably her last big event to maybe keep the Guardians down. All it takes is two hits against Prism, and you're probably not making top. Um, whereas
Yeah.
Phi can still win the Bravo matchup. It's not like an auto loss or anything. So I think I would lean towards Phi, and then if I wasn't picking Phi, it would I hate saying this, it would probably be Lexi. Um,
Really?
yeah,
Not Prism, not Prism yourself. That's the thing that's kind of
no,
surprising me. Like,
I think she just gets rolled to Phi. Like I don't know, like, and I think there's gonna be
yeah.
so much Phi in the room. Uh,
Yeah, I guess that's right. That's right.
so. And whereas I think Lexi can be that hero that if you get lucky enough and you don't hit specifically Olden or Bravo, I think you have a really good day into uh, Phi. Whereas, I mean, I don't know. You also have to not whiff three of a kinds. So you're a little bit more orange. You're less consistent. I think you have to high roll that tournament, but I think if you do high roll that tournament and you mostly hit Phi, you probably have a good shot. So I would lean towards Lexi. Um, Heroes I would want to play for my sake, for fun's sake, if I was just trying to have fun, would probably be again, I've been playing a lot of Dromai. Um, Someone said it in one of our discords that we're in earlier. I think she's just aggressively middle of the pack. Like she's not bad. You can definitely steal games, but again, we just get back to that consistency. She has a lot of moving parts. I've definitely drawn hands of like three dragons and an sand cover, and no real way to get Ash, um,
Yeah, it's kind of harsh on
except
those
having to like
scenarios.
pitch for my boots or something on their turn, take damage. Doesn't feel good. So I think there's too many turns like that, and I think like the Viserais of the world, I think they're very strong. I think Viserai is a very good deck. I think Briar's a very good deck, but I think if I'm comparing it to Phi, I think the issue to me versus those heroes, that class, is Phi will not have a turn where he draws three non-attack actions and like a not good attack.
Bunk his hand, yeah.
Yeah, so he's not running some mix of cards. He's like when we talk about combo, I'm kind of rambling again, sorry Ryan. But when we talk about combo, we think about Sabers, Bolton, but I feel like Rune Blades in particular are almost like you have to run like a mini combo deck every turn. Every turn you need the right card to start your hand, start your your turn off. Otherwise, your turn is typically not very good. Um, and normally that doesn't happen. Like where you don't hit it, you usually have it. Uh, but all it takes is one turn against a Fi, and then suddenly you did 8, the Fi did 14 to 16 to 20, and you're behind, and
Yep.
you're gonna have to start blocking before he does. So that's where I'm at. I think we'll definitely see Rune Blades in the top 8, but I think if I had to bet on it, I would bet Fi wins the tournament. Both like as of right now, it would win like Pro Tour Leo, but we'll see. I've been wrong before.
Yeah. I mean, we always like to get some surprises in with our
Oh, I would love to see like something like
tournaments.
a super dark horse win. Like I don't want to go crazy
L-
like Azalea, but
Levia.
I don't think Levi has a shot at all. Again, just
I
consistency.
have killed Fies in this meta, my dude.
No,
It
I
does happen
no. So that's
sometimes.
my point though, is it happens, but not with any kind of consistency. Um, what's a
Not when you
good like
play like
sort of
me.
consistent deck? I mean, maybe
Katsu.
Kano can actually like
I
show up again. I don't know.
No, I swear someone's gonna you know how you talked about Prism ankle shooting for the meta before? I swear to God, Akatsu's gonna ankle shoot the tournament with a bunch of wax-ons in his deck to block every Fi attack with low cost or
Maybe.
high pitch consistency, and just be like, yeah, dude, you don't want to keep blocking me when I get the actual like surging strike combo in hand, or I spend half the game defending until I've got a ton of this in my deck with just poking you down with Kadachis until I have like Lord of Wind for like 10 damage after a full combo. Like, holy crap, dude.
Oh yeah. All
It's
right. So
possible.
all right. So finally, last topic of the night, skirmish. How do we feel about skirmish? We've been talking a lot about CC, not about Blitz or Sealed.
I think
I'll
it's hilarious that you were talking about Road to Nats being like, yo, these are the two formats that determine a flesh and blood player. And now we've got Skirmish with the other two fucking
with the other.
formats.
That's a good point. So here's my thoughts on
Sealed
skirmish.
and Blitz. Oh my
I'll
god.
start on
Hmm.
skirmish. I think skirmish is a great tool to get newer or less experienced players comfortable in a tournament setting. Sealed is the uh what's it called? Like the SAT like comparison. Those like sealed is to draft as Blitz is to construct it. Like I think
Yeah.
sealed is like the baby version of draft where you're like, here's how to play limited. It's a little different than draft, but like it'll teach you how to like deck build in a limited format. And then Blitz is like, here's how to deck build in CC, but like it's not CC, it's just like a smaller version, so it's a little bit easier to deck
ABCC.
build. Yeah, baby CC. So I think it's good for that. We used to travel all over the place for skirmishes, but I think probably just do 2 or 3 in the local area. Uh,
Yeah, because I mean we're big boys now. We don't need all that extra. We don't need to ease into it.
and the prizing, is okay. It's, I want some silver tokens. I do want some silver tokens.
Got to
Uh,
get ready for that merchant spec in the next
I
class or
would
in the next
like
set.
I would like one of each of the young heroes in cold foil. I think
Thankfully,
the
there's only two this time.
again, where's the young? I kind of really like the new young uh
Icelander.
Icelander art, but
Hmm.
who am I? But we do also have the Ashwing mat. I mean, we have the Phoenix
Oh,
format
that's
too,
right.
but
The mats too.
the
The
Phoenix
mats are
format,
always
but
nice.
the Ashwing mat is really interesting because it can come in the regular, sand looking one, or it can be
Or the
angry
fiery
Ashwing.
ashes.
Yeah, we little baby
Hmm.
angry Ashwing, as like a
Yeah.
Marvel mat, which I think is pretty cool. It's a fun little twist on it. So, what do you think about
I would like
Skirmish?
to I would like to keep an eye. That's what I was about to say. I want to keep an eye on the sealed ones because we don't do sealed enough. I get why, because paying the extra for the extra packs is not what every player wants to do on just like a weekly basis or even on special events sometimes. But I kind of like, um, compared to draft, which is a lot more, I guess you could say, thought intensive in a shorter period of time because you can't hold the dang thing up the whole time while you're trying to pass cards and people are waiting for you. But at least sealed, when you get that deck building time, it's just you and all the cards that you have
Yeah.
available to try and figure out what is your best option to get that win. Now, the problem is, of course, some people might get luckier than you and get some sort of like legendary or some cards that really set them apart, or just
And
a
that
better
happens in
spread
draft
of
too.
cards. It does, but it's in a different
Yeah,
way
you have no
this way
control
because
over it.
like you could get one
Yeah.
good card for a character in draft, but then suddenly all the other people around you are also taking the same character, so your pool overall is still inconsistent
Yeah, you have
garbage.
no
Uh,
control over in sealed. You have no control over the rest of the room, right? You have no control over like what the guy next to you is pulling.
yeah,
Um,
but that can be an upside too, to some degree.
yeah, I mean, if you come out on
Especially
the
if you
other
get
side of opening busted packs,
even and I said this in my initial Cloak and Blaster pre-release video for Monarch. One of the things that was awesome for my sealed set was that I got 3 different Iron Rock gears and then the one Blood Drop Brocade to go ahead and give me an extra energy one way or the other. So I was like, this is insane because all the 0 block blue cards like Eclipse Existence that I had instantly block 6 on a good turn if I needed to. So sometimes it's as simple as equipment. Equipment can really set your character apart from other characters if you get like the Heat Wave or the Spellfire Cloak.
yeah.
So,
Coming up, I'm pretty excited about it. We're gonna be casting one. I know
hmm
I will be at least. We'll be casting the one at the Haven, kind of our partner store that we cast every Saturday at. So make sure you tune in for those streams, and that's kind of where we're gonna sign off here. So make sure you use that promo code TEAMACG at thehaventabletop.com. You will save 10% off all singles and kind of support the channel. Let them know you're watching. Let them know we sent you. What else we got going on? We have the streams like every Saturday. We have, what tournaments you going to, Ryan? Coming
I
up.
would say my 2 that are on my radar at the very least, and I'll need to double check when they are because like I just got roped into another commitment this weekend, so we'll see how that how that meshes with the rest of these skirmish events. But I would at least like to go to the Collective and the Haven, just because at the very least proximity, they're the closest to me, so it's always convenient to go to them on the
Yeah, it's kind of
weekends.
our home stores, right? So,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
kind of where we
And I
started
hope,
those communities.
yeah, and I hope, and I know one of them is at least sealed. And like I said, every once in a while, sealed I think is kind of fun. I do like sealed, especially in this format compared to like Aria, where unfortunately, you really only had your choice most of the time between just 2 of the characters instead of maybe a healthy spread between the 3. Uh,
Right. And I think after
um,
we'll talk more about skirmish, probably on the other end of that season, or hopefully we make this a weekly thing, and we'll talk about it as we're doing them, as
we're
they
getting there.
finish
We're
up.
getting
So,
there.
um,
hmm
hopefully better audio soon too. We've been looking at microphones. I know you had some issues, but
Yeah, you
we
mean
tried.
buying a microphone that doesn't work with my computer without another piece of gear that I didn't see? So
We
yeah,
tried. We're trying. So, like I said,
we're
save
trying.
10%. Using that promo code Team ACG. We'll put it in the description too. We'll put a link in the description. We'll put a link to the Twitch channel as well. We stream every Saturday. We stream to both Twitch and YouTube, our locals, whatever format that may be, and we'll definitely have more content coming soon. Other content like this, maybe some. We've been kind of streaming uh, randomly
Games. hmm
uh, some testing nights as well on
I think
TTS.
the chill testing nights are pretty cool. I think it's a good.
Yeah.
I think it's something we'll definitely bring going forward now that we got it started.
So if you haven't already, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. The cliche YouTube stuff. It does really help us out. I know you guys hear it pretty much on every YouTube video you watch this because it really does help out. So make sure you do that, and I guess we'll see you hopefully next week.
Yeah, catch you later, guys. Have good nights, and let's make this skirmish season, or let's hope this skirmish season is nice and interesting at the very least.
Peace.
Peace.